Okay. Good morning. My name is Stephen Ryder. I'm the Managing Director of CPO in Grimsby. I'm here today with my Operations Manager, Maureen Fable, and we're going to be discussing Paul's story. Paul works for CPO and has done for a decade. The language that we're going to use during the reading of both Paul's story and the Q&A that I'm going to do with Mo afterwards is the language that Paul himself uses when he reflects on autism and his life with autism. So I'm going to begin by reading Paul's story. This is something that he's written and he's happy for us to share both on this video and any comeback that we might get in future sessions regarding questions that you, the people who are watching this video, may have. So this is Paul. School life was a bit challenging at times. This was aggravated when you were bullied for the way that you acted. Also, I did not like arriving at school late. I usually arrived at school before all the teachers arrived, and sometimes that could be at least an hour before school was due to start. This also reflected on my grades, as they were lower than what could have been. The only grades that were high were my grades for ICT. I realized I was different from other children at school from the age of about 10. I felt I was different and I did not like to engage with my peers, as I thought they would just bully me as well for how I was. I did not complete any out-of-school activities, as I did not like the change to my daily routine and not knowing what would happen during those activities. I preferred being alone and to stay in my bedroom playing games and eating alone. I did get a phone when I went into secondary school and only used it in an emergency or when I was letting my parents know I was at school or on the bus coming home. I never contacted anyone from my peer group when I was out of school. School sent me on a two-week course to help with my confidence and social skills, but I did not like this, and I felt this did not help me at all. I felt that my peers were ignoring me and talking about me behind my back when I walked past. As a child, I did not get angry, I just used a coping mechanism of mine, and that was to play on my games console. When I did not understand something, I used to grab my head to see if it would go in. This is sometimes that I have carried on during my life. When my boss sees me doing this now, they ask me if I fully understand or explain to me how they would like the task completing. College life. When I started college, they saw something that could be potentially wrong and sent me to their in-house diagnostic team. I passed my English and maths during my first year at college. I think I was able to do this as all the learning and the exams were on the computer. I achieved high grades for the courses I took in college. In college, I did make a friend during my first year at college, but they stopped attending during the second year. As I did not like to use the phone, we lost contact with each other. I still preferred being alone. When I finished college, I went to sign on, and after about 6 months, they sent me to in-training, who after a few months sent me to CPO for a course. After the course with CPO ended, and everyone was leaving, I asked if I could stay as a volunteer. I worked hard during my time as a volunteer, and after some time as a volunteer, they offered me employment. My communication during those early days was very little, and I only communicated with my line manager. It took me for a while to start using the phone, and I had to write a script so I knew what I was going to say, and that made me feel comfortable. I started to complete different tasks and realized that I could accomplish things with my life. The CPO staff did accept that I was different, and I accepted this. I was offered courses to help me with my working life. I was made aware of my body language. I have made friends during my time at CPO, and this has made me feel that I do belong and that I am appreciated. Work life. Some days can be more difficult than others when the tasks are given. I like to plan in advance and go over the plan over and over again so I understand how to complete a task. I feel that I process information differently to others and see information differently. It does help because sometimes I get extra time to complete my tasks. Also, when I'm working with people that do not understand how to use a computer fully, I feel I'm able to excel. This also makes me proud as I feel I've accomplished something by showing how easy it is to use a computer for many day-to-day things. CPO always help me with anything that I do not understand and allow me to try different things first before I decide if they are right for me. When I first came to CPO, I saw they helped a lot of people with various needs, and this is something I thought would be good for me to be a part of. I've been at CPO for 10 years, and during this time I've helped with many different people, and this has enabled me to understand the different needs people have. As a child, I wish I had friends. I understand this is difficult for some people. Everyone should learn the difficulties of living with autism and how it can affect daily life. As an adult, I wish that more employers do give people with autism the chance and see the benefits that people with autism can bring with their different skills and attributes. I would like people to realize that people with autism are people too, and that they have feelings. I do have a sense of humor, but some people would think that my sense of humor is a bit sick. So that's Paul's story. Paul alluded in his story to his line manager, who obviously is Mo. What I'm going to do is just ask a series of questions and try and talk through how we've been able to work with Paul, but more importantly, how Paul's been able to work with us. And I think there's an important distinction there. So hopefully that story's of interest. I hope it's inspired some of you. And I hope that some of the questions and the answers that Mo will give will help to explain Paul's story a little bit more fully. When did you first meet Paul, Mo?
Paul came to us on a training programme, one of many that we ran, and straight away we noticed that Paul had sometimes had difficulties, and so we asked what he liked, what he didn't like, and we took time to get to know him. And with the other people that came on the course, of course it came to an end, and Paul came to me because I've got to know him by that, and I've got to know the staff, and asked if he could stay on as a volunteer because he felt comfortable and he felt safe. So we said yeah, and we welcomed the skill set that he had, and it was basically when he started coming to us as a volunteer, we worked out very quickly that he wanted a routine. So we gave him a timetable when to come to work and when not. He was always early. That is one of Paul's fantastic traits. He's the most reliable member of staff I think I've ever met. Is out the door last, is in, he's in first. He's always waiting. That's something that Paul feels comfortable on. So that is something we go along with. When he first came, I've got to say I had little understanding on autism. I took the time out. I wanted to find out more, and so I read a lot and asked Paul serious questions about what he wanted, what he felt would he benefit from, what made him feel comfortable.
Okay, thank you. So how do you manage Paul, and how might that feel different to how you manage other staff in the organisation? Well,
listening and finding out his what makes him feel comfortable, what makes him feel not comfortable at all. Finding out and learning more about how he thinks. I mean, he's got his own way how he processes things, so it's our responsibility to find out how we can help him to do that. So like we're managing Paul, I might I always try to give him things in advance if I can, because he works better that way. He likes to do a little plan himself, and so he might need a little bit help prioritizing, and that's fantastic because that works well as well. And it's literally, he might have more one-to-one sessions to make sure he understands. What I found helpful with Paul is to break down tasks. So if it's quite a large task, we just break it down, and we give it slowly and surely, and he gets there. It's me understanding what he needs, and like the other staff, we've learned to learn Paul's traits, and we've learned to be, because if Paul doesn't understand, that's not his fault. That's because we're not telling him the way that he needs to be told so he understands. So we like to break these things down. I mean, the staff are absolutely fantastic with Paul, like they are with any vulnerable person, in any different way. We process things the way we do. Paul processes them slightly differently to anybody else. But saying that is no harder, it's no more difficult to manage. It's just giving him the time that he needs.
Okay, thank you. What would you say that Paul's strengths were?
Oh, wow. He is fantastic at telephone numbers. I mean, I don't even have to look at a book. I can ask him that and he'll tell me that. And he excels at computers. I mean, I don't know what we would do without him. He looks after all, he's grown. And if we need to find out something like something wrong with the computer, everyone goes to Paul. He knows the answers that we don't know. And if we need data, information, you know, he'll redo the research to find out what that is. And he'll persevere as well. You know, he'll find out the answer. But it's fantastic, that sort of thing. He excels, it makes him happy. He likes to help people, especially when, you know, other people like me don't know the answer, and he'll go right and he'll find that. So yeah, he's really good. But passwords, wow, you know, you don't need it. You don't need to hide it. He knows the passwords.
Okay, good, thank you. So obviously Paul alluded to the fact that he's worked here for 10 years, and I mentioned that right at the beginning of the video. What changes have you noticed in Paul over the time that he's been with us?
Paul, in lots of ways. I mean, it's taken time and patience, I must say, sometimes, because when he first came to us, he didn't speak to no one for about 3 months. He was concerned, like you've heard from Paul's story. You know, he was bullied as a child, and I learned lots about him. He'd tell me and sit down and tell me stories, and it's what he needed, like the script, you know. By doing a script with Paul, that helped him build his confidence. And also as well, giving him challenges like tasks. I mean, we've done an emergency response thing through COVID, and I've had so many compliments about him. You know, he's learned to speak. He speaks to people in such a caring, passionate way. He's a very gentle soul. And so people feel safe around them. And so we get lots of people saying, you know, how well, I'm very grateful for the support he gives. It's also as well us learning about his needs and his wants and what gives him pleasure, you know, what sort of tasks that he really feels that he gets enjoyment out of. And so it's literally finding out what he's good at, and the things that he isn't is slightly difficult for him, like, so all skills difficult things for all of us. We look into that, you know. So if I see him anxious or anything like that, I ask why, you know, what's going on, you know, what can I help? Because somebody might have said something in a way that he's taken, he hasn't processed it, you know, and that concerns, because he always wants to do well, he always wants to excel in things, and he gets a bit confused sometimes, because we're not, all of us, you know, we just don't say it the way that Paul needs to hear it. But yeah,
I think it would be unfair of us not to reflect on Paul's response to the COVID crisis that we're going through. If you can just explain a little bit about the absolutely amazing work that he's been doing for the last 9 months supporting people in the community.
Right, okay. When COVID hit, you, Steve, and you know, we realised that we couldn't let the community down. We needed to give these people, vulnerable people, the support they needed, whether that was shopping or prescriptions. And so Paul was right at the front line. You know, people ring up and they would turn around and say that they needed shopping. They had nobody else at all. You know, we all think, well, everybody's got to have somebody out there, but really, there's a lot of people out there who've got nobody. So Paul would go and get the shopping list and stand in lots of queues and do the shopping. If a person had a shopping list and that item wasn't on that list, Paul would ring them and go, look, the shop hasn't got this, but would you like that instead? Even to a case of a funny story, a cat food. You know, one lady wanted a certain cat food, and Paul had to hunt this cat food down in lots of supermarkets and lots of queues. And it's the hidden things, like he would actually then go back and ask them, is he all right, and ring them. And he used to say, do you want any more shopping? So they felt safe, and he did an amazing, absolutely amazing job. He never let anybody down, working later hours sometimes just to make sure that everybody got what they needed. So yeah, he did, absolutely, it was astounding.
Yeah, and I think the reflection there for me is that, you know, given what Paul himself has said in his story and what you observed in those very early days, the thought that 10 years ago that young man who came to us for the very first time would stand in a supermarket and ring somebody who was a relative stranger. I think it's it's a remarkable progress, and certainly as the manager of this organisation, I think it's fair to say thousands of people in the last 9 months have benefited from his support, and it's quite incredible, really. You've talked about Paul, and you've used the word anxiety, and that's certainly not something which is solely owned by people who have autism, but it is something that I know that you've had to deal with on occasions. How do you go about approaching that when you feel that he's particularly anxious about something?
Well, basically, listening and talking and finding out what it is. I mean, we've come to know Paul and what he feels anxious about. So he said in his story how he puts his hands to his head. Mm-hmm. That is something that is carried on. So that's, to me, when I see that, I look at his body language. When he does this, I know he hasn't processed something maybe the way that somebody maybe else would. So I take the time out. It's like I said, to me, the staff have done it as well. We've taken time out to learn more about autism. There's so much out there that they can get support with and help with, and learn about how to help other people, like they've done with other people with different vulnerabilities and different needs, or like ourselves, we've all got our own needs. So when Paul's feeling like that, I look at the task and look at Paul and listen and find the core. Find out what it is about the process of the task that he's having difficulty with. And we work it out together, and then he's okay, and then he's off doing his fantastic work that he does.
Excellent, thank you. So obviously we've known Paul, the saying is, I think, man and boy, really. Obviously, it's been a journey for him. It's been a journey for us as an organisation. I think we're in a very good place at the moment, both as an organisation, and Paul's an integral part of that. If you had any advice to give to any other manager in the country who was managing somebody who was autistic, what advice would you have to give them?
Speak to them, find out, observe them, find out what they're, because everyone's unique, we're all unique, like I said, finding out what barriers that they need helping with, find out the strengths. When you find out the strengths, it's great. You give them a chance. Just don't go further. They're not really great at communicating, say, if that's one of their traits. Find out what's behind that. Give them, there's loads and fantastic things that they can do. Listen and find out about the help that's out there, about working out how they can find out information, how they process information, and by doing that, you're going to help them grow and give them a chance. I mean, people say about equality and diversity and being inclusive. You should be. Every manager and everybody out there should be giving people a chance, by seeing, just not by thinking, okay, that person's got this person's got that. We are supposed to be helping each other, and that's why I love working for CPO, because we've always helped others. We've always believed in giving people chances, and that's what attracted Paul to us, because he saw that he fitted in. Everyone takes the time to find out about people. And so that's what I would say any manager should do. Listen, find out, give them an extra little bit of time till you get to find and get to know them, because it pays dividends.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's really important. I think, we live in the world of buzzwords and buzz phrases. Inclusive is obviously something that I think we've always been. There's a massive emphasis on that. I'd love to think that we've been at the forefront of that ever since we started as an organisation. And Paul's just one example of people who have come to us on a course or for support in other areas of their life and have ended up being employed. I think it's fair to say that over 60% of the staff working here came to us either as a trainee, as a client on one of our employability projects, or somebody who was looking for additional support in other areas of their life. And, you know, it's delightful to be able to reflect on how Paul joined the organisation and how he's grown with it. Just some final reflections from me on this. I know there's always a bit of debate around whether you say that somebody is a person with autism or somebody is an autistic person. But I think the most important thing to note there is both of those phrases consist of the word person. And I think we would all agree that Paul is very much a person first, like we are all people first. And autism is just something that I think in many ways has helped him to understand who he is as a person. I think his story, which was very moving in many ways, reflected on how difficult he found his early life because he didn't understand himself. You know, those of you who've read Shakespeare know that really there's only one theme in Shakespeare, and that's self-knowledge. And I think that through the work that Paul did at college, and then a bit of a dip in confidence after that, where the safety net of college was pulled away to a certain extent, and you had to go back out and be an individual in the big wide world again. There was a little bit of a dip there that lasted for about 6 months, if you've listened to Paul's story. But I think however difficult he might have found CPO at first, there were a lot of people with him on that course when it started. There weren't many by the end. He was the last man standing, literally. But he has remained a part of the organisation, as I said at the beginning, for a decade. And he has grown as a person, and he has grown as a person as we have grown as an organisation. And I think the responsibility, as Mo's reflected, is as much on the organisation as it is on the person. I hope you've enjoyed Paul's story. There will be opportunities later on to ask questions, both about CPO as an organisation and about our work with Paul and other people who may or may not be autistic. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.